Warning: this video contains a revolutionary scientific invention that has never been seen before called an opinion. You have been warned. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is alrav from Quebec, Canada, the author and creator of Alcatraz the Protector / Alcatraz the Protector. And for today's rant, I'll be talking about putting an end to the debate between comics and manga once and for all, because it is long overdue. Why is it such a thing? Because comic book properties, while they made billions on screen-based medias, in mercs, toys and everything, that success has largely failed to translate into a boost in readerships of American comics. In fact, sales of the monthly floppies, the good old format, are getting lower than ever. In contrast, the sales and popularity of mangas have remained consistent throughout the board, despite the push for big screen-based media. So why is that? A lot of critics will suggest that comics should become more like mangas, and there are many who blames or finger point different problems, but the real reason why mangas have an edge over comics has less to do with the content, the logistic, or even the art style, but has more to do with the environment under which Japanese creators operate. I'll be showing you an example. In Japan, if someone watch an anime and decide to pick up the manga on which the anime is based on, the transition is almost one-to-one. As anime mostly exists as an advertisement piece for mangas, so there is a synergy between the two that are both in place. However, in the case of American comics, if somebody decides to watch, let's say, a superhero movie and decide to pick up the comics on which the character is from, they are most likely to be confused because everything exists as part of a multiverse in which every version of the same characters are different from one another. So for most people who have watched the films or played the video games or anything like that, there is little to no incentive to pick up the comics at all. It is the reality of the comic book landscape. An example of that is the Civil War event that took place in Marvel Comics. If you watch the movie Captain America Civil War and try to pick up the comics Civil War, there are some parallels such as Iron Man and Captain America leading their respective sides against one another, and there are a few characters like Black Panther and Spider-Man that are featured across both. But for the most part, the story seen in the big screen versions and the comic book versions have nothing to do with one another. So there are many characters and the set pieces are completely different between the two versions. So if you read the comics, you'll most likely be confused because of the sheer volumes of characters that simply weren't in the films at all. There has also been a video game adaptation of this event in the form of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, which did, to its credit, a more faithful rendition of the events from the comics, but did took some liberties with the third act in particular. There is also no denying that many of the big comic book properties that are popular belong to the big two, and these companies are very notable for pushing writers and artists into draconian work for art policies in which all the characters and IPs they created belong to the companies and such. So once they leave the ship, there will simply be a new creative team to replace the old one, so the story will keep going on forever with different people at the helm. So it is very different from mangas in which the stories tend to be largely in the hands of the authors and there are no successions unless An appointed successor is designated by the author. With that being said, the solution to the problem is actually quite simple. As more and more American creators become independent and self-publish their work directly to their audience, the standards of adaptations will become gradually much more like those seen in Europe and in Japan, where creator-owned is a default, and the adaptations in return will be much more faithful to the source material on which they are based. It is not a flawless system too. A lot of the difference comes from the culture of the companies as a whole, when all the bargaining powers and the money are in the hands of the big companies. For many creators, they will face the dilemma of either settle for a lesser adaptation or simply not get adapted unless they are a household name that's easily recognizable. With that being said, while mangas tend to be easier to adapt simply because they are built in mind with the synergy between anime and mangas, American comic books are a lot harder simply because, well, most stories nowadays tend to be decompressed and built in mind for trade paperbacks, so you can have these compilations of stories that make a whole story by itself. Old school monthly floppies were tend to be designed as much more self-contained medium in comparison, with stories are self-contained and the writing itself tends to be much more like a novel than anything. So it simply isn't feasible to adapt everything. That's why some of the most successful adaptations from the big two tend to be those that stay true to the spirit of the characters themselves rather than direct translations of the stories themselves. And that's it for today's rant, folks. Let me know what you think in the commentary section below. As always, look forward to all the Algatraz the Protector / Algatraz the Protector stuff on my Substack. The links are available in the description below or on my channel's page. As always, the first issue is available for free in both English and French, as well as its Blocks Comics companion, which is updated on a daily basis. With that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see one another very soon. Have a good reading.